Hey guys, Ben Payne here, and today we're back once again for another video, and this time we're taking part in the first round of the SRK Championship at Castle Combe. Now obviously, as we're at Castle Combe, we're going to take a quick look at the incredible racing that is out on track today, so I hope you guys enjoy that one. But obviously the sort of format for this one, we have 3 heats, much like we did last year. It's exactly the same, followed by a corresponding final to see how we get on. Now obviously, compared to our season last year when we started off in the first round of the championship, I'd like to think we've learned a few things to hopefully not end up in the same sort of position as we did last year. But obviously, instead of racing for Vitice this year, I am instead racing for Kinetica Racing Team, KRT, the team that myself and Harley Smith founded. And obviously, in lieu of this, myself, Harley Smith and Aaron Mitchell-Begley will be taking on the team championship together as a team of 3. So we're going to see how we get on today and hope for a good result. However, before we jump into the footage, I'm unsure if I'm going to show you guys some practice or just jump straight into the heats. If you do enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like on the video down below, as I really do appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel, if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button, as it really does help me out. But without further ado, we're going to jump straight into the footage and see how we get on today. Jumping into our very first SRK heat of the year, and guys, we are starting in P2, which is something that I don't think I've ever actually had in the whole entirety of the 2023 season, and probably one of the worst places to get it. Turning into a right-hander in the first corner of Castle Combe was never going to be fun. We did have Jen Tompkins in 3rd position as well, so I knew that it was going to be a bit of a struggle. And as you can see here, as we're about to get underway, I did actually get caught napping here. I got on the throttle very late and leaked a position immediately to Jen. I knew I had to try and get back towards the inside as quickly as possible to sort of preserve any more positions being lost. So a bit disappointed with that. As we can see, Zach is now sort of jetting off into the distance. And one thing I found quite peculiar at the beginning is that Jen decides to drive quite defensively, even though we were both still in contention to really work together and try and catch up for a possibility of winning this heat. Now, we do come across the line on our first lap at 28.094, not too quick, obviously due to just starting at a standstill. I was trying to signal to Jen, look, stop defending, try and push forward, but instead she decides to sit to the inside, so I just quickly move to the outside racing line and perform a nice switchback to just claim pretty much a nice position there, moving myself back up into the place where we started. However, you can see with Castle Combe, just that one lap with a little bit of defending has now put us in a bit of a tricky situation if we want any chance to try and catch up with Zach Swannell, who has pretty much gained so much time pushing off into 1st place. So I decided to get my head down, didn't even think about defending to Jen behind, who I knew was still right up behind me, and I just wanted to try and put in the best laps that I could. Obviously, I haven't been to the track barely compared to a lot of other people. The only time we ever came here was in the wet, and it was last year, so I was just trying and learn the track on the fly in this heat, as well as the 5-minute practice, which I did skip out just because it was just trundling them out, and I think it'd be quite boring to sort of talk over, but instead just trying to hit as many apex as we can, carry as much speed through each of the corners, just to ensure that we can sort of minimise the distance towards Zach and hope that he makes a little bit of a mistake. One thing I did notice while going around on this heat is making one tiny little mistake in any sort of part of the track was going to cost you a whole heap of time. Obviously, if you lose any momentum at any point of the track, it's going to slow you down for the rest of the lap. So I was just trying to get as close to the apex as I could, and also just dragging the car out quite wide, staying to the middle, coming back down the hill, as I found that this was quite quick compared to sort of running myself all the way out to the left-hand side and maximising the track length. So instead, I decided to stay a little bit narrower and minimise the track length to ensure that we just had a little bit of a quicker run. It might have compromised ourselves on the exit, but I just felt like it sort of balanced itself out. We're coming around the top hairpin once again. We are actually beginning to close in on Zach here. You can see me urging the car forward as we begin to come down the hill, and the gap is closing bit by bit, but we do round out the last couple of corners here to finish off the heat. Our fastest lap in this one in the first heat is 25.308, which was obviously done on the last lap of the heat. Really happy with that, just because obviously we were getting quicker and quicker as the heat went on. Unfortunately, due to the defending at the start of the race from Jen, we just lost that little bit of time that we needed to really try and reel Zach in, and obviously my start was absolutely abysmal. But a little bit of confusion here at the end because there was no checkered flag, so me and Zach were a little bit confused, if I'm honest. I was just sort of sat here a bit perplexed, but we did manage to luckily round out the first one in second position, which is a lot better compared to our first heat last year. So we're going to jump into some post-race thoughts now. Okay then guys, so after our practice and the first heat, we did start in second and managed to hold on to second position, obviously losing the position to Jen down to third at the beginning. Just didn't get underway very quickly at all, which is a bit of a shame. However, we're going to be starting a little bit further back in the next one, our back heat. We're actually in with teammate Harley Smith, so we're going to see how we get on in that one. Overall though, really happy to pick up a second place in our first heat. Gives us a solid start to the rest of the day. So let's jump into the second heat and see how we get on. So with this being our back heat and starting in 7th position, I knew that we were going to be up against it due to the nature of Combe and it being quite tight, and a lot of people do like to defend the positions that they're in. I gave myself sort of the personal goals to try and make up 2 positions to finish in 5th place, but obviously it was going to be a bit of a tall order. We do get underway here, again, just not quite had the reaction time that I really wanted here, but Harley does give us the room on the inside, so I decided to sort of try and slide my way up the inside, hoping for the momentum out of the corner. We managed to sort of juggle our way up to 6th here. We then do just scrape the tyres on the outside, pushing us back down to 7th. So instead of sort of trying to recuperate our losses there by sending a move down the inside of Harley, I decided to back off, sit in behind him, preserve the position and try and work with him to make our way through the pack. Now unfortunately, you can see despite this, I have actually grazed the barrier coming back down the hill, and it's just such a small little sort of accident, and it's just caused such a big consequence. We've lost about 3 or 4 kart lengths now to the pack up ahead, forcing me to have to go defensive as we come up the hill, which is always going to cost us even more time. But luckily for us, we were then able to just get our head back down and begin to close the gap back up. Now you can see our lap times are not the best, 26.276, so I knew that in this one the kart didn't feel quite as punchy as it did in the first heat, so I knew that if anything was going to happen, it would have to be because of the drivers up ahead defending or having a little bit of a squabble, which is exactly what happens here. You see Luke Battersby going up the inside there, forcing Kai Pugh out wide in sort of retaliation, and therefore we were able to slide up the inside of him into 6th position. So we now only had to make 1 more place throughout the rest of this heat to hit the target that I had personally set for myself. So again, just trying to take some clean lines, hold the momentum through the corners and try and catch back up to the pack that was sort of squabbling up ahead. So you can also see Peyton Fricker there in 3rd looking for a way pass, and Harley tries to go around the outside of Luke, and this sort of compromises himself. So I thought, luckily with the space here on the inside, just slotted up the inside of Harley, getting our way up into 5th, which is the target that we'd set for ourselves. But unfortunately, I didn't really want to try and sit back and defend this position. Obviously, Harley's my teammate, wanted to work with him to try and catch back up to the guys up ahead and hopefully sort of forge a gap for him to also follow me through. So in light of this, I decided to not defend going into the top hairpin when Harley is able to send a very nice move up our inside. Me being quite stubborn, I then decided to try and hang it around the outside going down the hill, which was never going to work. I then decided to get quite angry at myself and annoyed, which then led to a lot of chaos and anarchy unfolding, leading to Hagen being spun out. We dropped down to 8th position and I just was over exaggerating, shouting, which it just never helps and you just look like an idiot. So apologies to you, Hagen. I honestly did not see you were up on my inside. Obviously when you've got the helmet on, the visibility is clearly a lot lower compared to sort of the POV you get on the camera, which is obviously situated on top of the helmet. And at this point in the race, there was really nothing else to be gained from it. We were down in 7th where we started, so technically we hadn't lost anything. It was a bit disappointing and I just was struggling. I think my head just went a little bit all over the place, driving quite poorly here. You can see Kai's even given us a little bit of a shunt up our rear, and we're sort of rounding out this race now in 7th place. Nothing left that we can do due to the nature of the length of the heats at Castle Combe. So we come across the line with our fastest lap of the heat at 26.226, where unfortunately it just wasn't enough to put us up where we really wanted to be. Now we do cut the camera off quite quickly here as we were a bit annoyed, so we're going to jump into some post-race thoughts from this one. So after we finished our second heat, we did in fact finish in 7th position, which is exactly where we started. So we didn't actually lose any positions. Unfortunately, we did make it up to 5th in that one. However, just a bit of rough and tumble caused us to sort of shuffle back down the pack. So a little bit disappointed with that. However, we're going to take it in our stride, get into the last race where we are on with teammate Aaron Mitchell-Begley, and we're going to try our best to sort of carve our way through the pack. I believe we're starting in 6th position in that one. So we're going to see how we get on, and hopefully we are able to sort of finish in a decent final. I believe that we're around the sort of area, we're on 26 points so far, so we're in the area for the BC final currently if we manage to pull out a decent result in the last one. So let's jump into that one and see how we do. So a complete mindset change compared to this time last year, where I would have completely thrown my toys out of the pram, decided to come into this 3rd and final heat with the goal in mind to try and get as far up the field as possible, whilst also trying to support teammate Aaron, who is starting directly in front of us in P4. Obviously, if you go into the next heat, there's not a lot of time, and it would just ruin the rest of your day if you take in any badness that happens. So we have Aaron here, gets off to a pretty poor start, and my whole goal here was just to try and push him forward through past some of the other guys that are up ahead of him squabbling, and you can see again I'm just giving him a little bit of a shunt to give him a boost going up the hill, which works to perfection as he's then able to race his way up into P3. So with this little mission or milestone completed, it was now my job to try and contend with former teammate Aidan Dancer, who I know is very quick at Castle Combe, able to slot down the inside there, and we're now in the position where we started in P6. But I wasn't going to be hanging around here, and I decided to pull off probably one of my best moves of the day there, sliding up the inside, very late move, and able to steal the apex from him, moving my way up into 5th position, and now I have my eyes set on the driver up ahead again. Much like before, not deciding to drive defensively. I thought there's no time to drive defensively, we just got to look ahead and try and make as many positions as possible. The best form of defence is to attack the driver up ahead, because if you start defending, you're just going to lose time, and you can see how much time that little squabble has sort of dropped us to the guys who are in the top 3 positions. So we've got the driver up ahead of us here, driving very defensively again, much like Jem was in the first heat. I tried to do the exact same move as I did previously, but unfortunately we didn't quite get the momentum at the corner, and as you saw from the video at the beginning in the intro, I didn't want to have a repeat of the Barry Lewis incident, so I decided to back out there, fight another day, and that's exactly what I did going into the first corner, making the same move I did on Aidan on the driver in 4th position, moving ourselves up into 4th, and now it was a case of getting our heads down and could we close the gap to the 3 guys that are up ahead. Now obviously we've got Hagen in the lead, defending quite hard to teammate Jeff Fricker, and I was a bit confused about this at the time, obviously due to the nature of the last heat where we sort of had that incident. I'm not surprised he was defending to try and preserve as many points as possible. I was hoping Aaron was going to be able to force his way into 2nd, but you can see just from how much they've been fighting in the sort of short span of a lap, we've been able to really close up to the back of them, and I knew at this point that sort of the guys behind, we managed to drop them a little bit just from driving as cleanly as we could and getting away, and now we're right on the back of this top 3 battle, so it's all to play for. I didn't really want to go for a lunge down the inside of Aaron, obviously he is my teammate, wanted to try and work with him, but then in my own head I also wanted to try and get past, so I was a bit confused or conflicted what to do in this situation, looking over my shoulder to see Aidan was now racing up behind us as well. I try and make a move up the inside of Aaron, but unfortunately we do make a little bit of contact with Jeff, who's throwing his hands around all over the place. He's not happy with that little bit of contact, and unfortunately we did just have to sort of reconcile ourselves in 4th position, and I knew at this point it was going to be a real struggle now with Aaron probably starting to defend or trying to look for ways past. We did have a bit of a gap to the guys behind, but they were closing in quite quickly, and I knew that at this point it was going to be a bit of a struggle to make our way past. So rounding out the last couple of corners here, you can see we're closing up quite quickly. I'm checking over to see if the checker flag's about to be flown, and unfortunately it was waved, and we come across the line on the last lap with a 25.859, waving to Aaron there to say good job, we managed to get 3rd and 4th in that one, which is obviously great. A bit annoyed, you can see there throwing my head back, that I was unable to make another position into P3, which would have put us solidly in the B final, but unfortunately we were just unable to capitalise at the beginning to get a good start, and this led to us finishing in P4. Really happy with this regardless, and we're going to jump into some post-race thoughts. Okay then guys, so we're just jumping in here after our third and final heat. I believe that we actually managed, by finishing in 4th position, that one position behind teammate Aaron Mitchell-Begley, who I really wanted to overtake, but at the same time I just didn't, because I didn't want to ruin both of our races. But after finishing in 4th, I believe that puts me in 22nd overall, shared between the SRK1 and SRK2 drivers. I believe I am 5th in SRK2, which is a couple of places off a podium, and honestly, if we had a little bit of a better run in the second heat, then we would have been right up near the front, which is obviously goes to show how close these races really are. However, we're going to jump into the final now. I'm unsure whether I'm in the C final. I believe I'm sort of near the front of the C final, but we'll find out now. Going to jump into the footage and see how we get on in the last race of the day. With the sun setting over the Castle Combe track, I knew that we had to really get our head down in this one. We have Max Thorne up ahead of us, who is currently 4th in SRK2, and the driver in first, Kobe, was also 3rd in SRK2, with the opportunity to make his way up into the B final. Now, obviously, this was a very tough grid. We had a couple of very strong drivers who hadn't had the best day. We got Gabe Quinter in 2nd. We also had Seb Miller in behind us, and Ryan Taylor was on our right-hand side. I knew that if we had any chance in this one, we were going to have to get underway as quickly as possible. With our eyes set on the green light, we get underway for the first time today with a good launch, managing to force our way up into 3rd immediately, pushing Kobe through, who was in 1st. We then were able to dispatch Gabe as well, moving up into 2nd. So a really solid start here, and I knew that I didn't really have time to defend to Gabe. I sort of sit more towards the middle of the track here, as I know Gabe is a very quick driver, but I knew that, much like I said in the last heat, I had no time to defend. I just had to get my head down and try and put in the best laps that I possibly could in order to try and catch up and overtake the driver who was in 1st place. Now, here you can see our first lap, the 27.344, and this heat is essentially a hot lap session. Me and Kobe were then able to break away from the guys behind, as they all just started squabbling with one another, grouping up, obviously where people are defending, and it was just a case of who was going to make a mistake first. So coming back down the hill, taking some nice clean lines, we're closing up to the driver in 1st place, 25.291, which is a pretty solid lap time. I believe that's one of our fastest laps of the day so far, which is a whole second quicker compared to what we were doing last year. Obviously the conditions are different, but I was really happy with this, and I was just trying to stay as focused as possible, trying to carry as much momentum through each of the corners as I could, not using the brake too much, as this is obviously going to bog the kart down. And we come across the line once again, the gap staying pretty similar, being very consistent at 25.275. Again, you can see we're just sort of maintaining our gap. We're not really gaining anything or losing anything, and we're just sort of staying the same, which is a bit annoying. It's very frustrating when you're in the car, as you want to see that gap closing if you are chasing someone down, because at the end of the day, if the gap's getting bigger, you know you're driving badly, then you're a bit slower, and if you're closing up, then you're obviously gaining time. Now you can see we are beginning to gain time here, a 10th quicker once again, 25.175, which I was really happy with, and we were slowly, bit by bit, reeling in Kobe, who is just driving pretty well and pretty cleanly, to be fair to him. But you can see here we're getting closer and closer every lap. I knew that there wasn't many laps to get the move done, so if there was going to be an opportunity opening itself, I would have to take it, and now we're closed up quite close, and we come across the line with 25.030, our fastest lap of the day so far, and this was in fact the 3rd fastest lap across all the finals, which I was really happy with. But unfortunately, just bogging down on the exit of the 1st corner, you can see we just lost that time that we had gained. And again, I was trying to feint to the right, hoping that he was going to look over his shoulder for him to defend a bit and throw him off, but unfortunately that just seems to throw myself off quite a bit. And you can see all the time we gained over the last couple of laps by making a little bit of a mistake clipping the barriers has now just sort of rendered us in a position where, with a couple of laps, or I believe that this was the last lap, that there was just no chance for us to catch up. I looking over my shoulder at this point, I saw the gap was quite accentuated to the guys behind, so I knew at this point that 2nd was pretty much what was going to be left for us as we round out the last couple of corners here. We come round the last corner once again with a 25.241. Bit annoyed, as you can see me throwing my head back, but still a very solid performance. Congratulations to Kobe, who just drove pretty superbly there in that final, and he was just able to get away and just drove quite cleanly. But yeah, finishing in 2nd in this one, quite happy with that, and honestly not much more I could have done. Just 1 or 2 mistakes throughout the heat obviously just led to us not being in striking distance. But we're going to jump into sort of a round out for the rest of the day now. Okay then guys, so I'm just jumping in here at the end, wanting to get away from the darkness, as you probably wouldn't have been able to see me. You may not be able to see me just due to the lighting in my room in general. However, honestly, couldn't have had a better day really. We managed to finish in 20th position on track overall and 4th in SRK2, which is obviously the subcategory for the championship. I'll leave the results, or the final results of the day, up on the screen now for you to have a look at. You can see throughout the points that honestly there was just a few points difference between myself in near the front of the C final and even the back of the A final and the front of the B final. So just 4 more points or 2 more positions would have secured us in that sort of position, which obviously would have been a perfect start to the year, putting us first in place in category. However, we can't dwell on that. Had a really solid day and honestly so much better compared to our time here at Castle Combe in 2023, where we finished in about 907th position. So couldn't be happier with that. Honestly, super strong all day, had great pace, and I believe in terms of the final pace, or the pace across all the finals, we actually managed to finish in third, which obviously we had the third fastest lap with a 25.07, which I'm really happy with, and it just goes to show that we did have some decent pace, especially in that last race where we just managed to catch up to the driver in first position. However, obviously this driver in first did manage to then get promoted up to the B final, and they then managed to secure second place for themselves overall in the category, so they're able to sort of gain another position just from being in that final, which is such a shame, as that could have been us in that position, but we can't dwell on it. It was honestly still such a solid result. However, that does in fact bring us to the end of the video, guys, so I hope you have all enjoyed it. If you have, can you please leave a like on the video down below, as it really does help me out. And if you're new to the channel, or if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button, as I really do appreciate it. Down below in the description is my link tree, which does hold all sort of links to the social medias that I run or I'm a part of, so I really appreciate it if you could sort of check those out as well, if you want to keep more up to date with what I get on with on and off track. But in the meantime, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.